Opposition of Bill 157.
Yes, I'm Cliff Kopp, local dentist, speaking on Bill 157. And mahalo for the opportunity to talk on this. Bill 157 requests $6 million for the soil remediation of the Kealakekehe scrapyard located on TMK 374020, parcel 16. This TMK is Conservation District land. According to the Environmental Management Department, all necessary approvals and permits have been done for this project. The point I'm going to make is this is not true. To give background to this issue, in 2013, on or about, the Kealakekehe sort station was built on TMK 374020, parcel 21, directly across the street. This is also Conservation District land. This environmental management project was performed without the permission of DLNR and specifically the Land Division and the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands. There was also, as a result, no environmental impact statement done. Now we move forward 3 years, and the same thing is now occurring. The Kealakekehe scrapyard remediation project for lead and other contaminants is under the jurisdiction of DLNR, and specifically OCCL. To date, the county has not communicated to OCCL regarding the land contamination incident or the remediation. Therefore, on March 28th, I wrote to Samuel Lemo, administrator of OCCL. This letter was CC'd to the mayor, county council members, environmental management, and others. OCCL is working on a response to myself, and they may be responding to county as well. In addition, I would like to add that in 2013, $3 million was approved by county council for this very same remediation. Is this $6 million additional money, is it additional money? And is this actually a $9 million project? Basically, you know, as a citizen of the state of Hawaii and as a resident of the county of Hawaii, I must abide by laws regarding permits. The council should expect no less from county departments and therefore should either postpone this bill or vote no on the bill until they receive further information from DLNR and specifically OCCL. Approving this bill is not an option at this time. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony.
Authorizes the mayor of the County of Hawaii to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for a state water pollution control revolving fund loan for solid waste public improvement projects, and authorizes the issuance of $6 million general obligation bonds of the County of Hawaii for the purpose of financing qualified solid waste public improvements for the County of Hawaii. Authorizes the issuance of up to $6 million in general obligation bonds to construct the environmental management Kealakekehe scrap metal yard remediation project, which includes excavating lead-impacted soil and transporting it to the West Hawaii Sanitary Landfill for final disposal. This request allows the county to take advantage of the lower interest rates provided by the State Revolving Fund Loan Program. Reference Communication 712, introduced by Ms. Eoff, first reading March 16, 2016.
Ms. Eoff.
Move to approve Bill 157.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Eoff, second by Mr. Paleka. Ms. Eoff.
And thank you, Director Lieutenant Todd, for being here today. And we did have some questions from the last reading, so I'll yield and let council members who may have questions address those to you.
I guess so.
Thank you, Ms. Eoff. Mr. Paleka.
Good morning, Director Lieutenant Todd. We had a concern of one of our testifiers this morning, Dr. Kopp, regarding the permitting process and if we're in compliance with the. So if you could address that, please.
First, I'd like to introduce our project manager, Jean Kiamus, who is in charge of this particular project. Although well-intentioned, I think Dr. Kopp isn't aware of how DLNR operates. or the particular permits that govern our site. The land in question is under a general lease which was issued to the county back in 1965. As such, because it's a lease, it comes under the Land Management Division of DLNR, who we communicate with. We became aware of the lead contamination back in about 2010 when we did some soil samples and testing. And since then, we have been working with both the Department of Health as well as DLNR to move, and the neighboring property, Queen Liliuokalani Trust, because the scrap metal pile kind of fell over and encroached on their property. So part of this project is also to clean up the contamination on the Queen Liliuokalani Trust properties. I didn't make copies for you. This will be available online. This is the county's draft environmental assessment. It has already gone to OEQC. It will be published on April 8th. And as part of that process of doing the draft EA, we did pre-consultation with both neighboring property owners and various state agencies, including the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and DLNR as well, and Department of Health. In DLNR's case, what we did is we sent it to their Land Management Division. They, in turn, send out the copy of the pre-consultation to all of their divisions, including OCCL. And then each division makes a determination on whether they want to respond to the pre-consultation letter or wait until the actual draft EA is published. We only had 2 divisions that responded. One was engineering, which was to confirm that this was firm X in terms of the flood zone. And then the other was the Big Island Land Management Chief, which is Gordon Height. And he basically said that he was aware, but that he would wait for further comments upon publication of the environmental assessment. The reason we have to do this project is it's a condition of our permit of operation under the Department of Health. And we've been in consultation with them. I mean, we had various alternatives that we looked at. And after a number of consultations, the preferred alternative is basically to dig up the contaminated soil, transport it to Pu'u'anahulu, which is a lined landfill, and remove all the lead contamination. Because we had originally looked at just encapsulating the lead by basically coming in and doing an asphalt layer. But after our consultations with both DLNR and DOH, the preferred alternative is to dig up the soil, remove all the lead contamination, and then take it to Pu'u'anahulu. In order to try and expedite this, what you have is multiple tracks going. We've got one track where we're already doing the draft environmental assessment and you have a consultant doing your pre-consultation. We have another track where we're trying to get funding. The reason this is in front of you is we were unaware that the State Revolving Fund for Clean Water, which we typically use for wastewater projects, would be available for this brownfield cleanup. And as soon as we had those conversations with the state, with their Clean Water branch, and realized that this money was available, we immediately jumped on going for the SRF funding, because as you're familiar, our most recent bond float, I think, was a 2.9 or 2.8% interest. State revolving fund loans are less than 1%. So it represents a substantial savings to the county. And so that's why this is here. We're doing everything by the book. We're doing the consultations. We are in touch with DLNR as well as DOH every step of the way. And if the public has comments on this, this will be on the OEQC website on April 8th.
Thank you very much, Madam Director.
Thank you, Mr. Paleka. Ms. Willie.
Thank you, Mrs. Lightad Todd, for being present. I think so. One of the questions was whether this $6 million was in addition to the previous $3 million, and whether the total is a total of 9 or is it a total of 6?
It's a total of 6.
Okay.
But as the council is aware, once you start a project, sometimes you discover conditions that you're unaware of. So it's entirely possible that the price tag could go up. We have been assured by the state that if that is the case, there will be additional SRF funding that we can go after. And at this point, this is our best estimate based on the engineers, based on the consultants, of what it will cost to remediate the site and make it safe for both the public as well as our workers.
Okay, good. And so have we spent the $3 million, or that's after the EA?
That's after the EA. What
Okay.
we've done so far, we haven't done any actual movement of earth other than soil sampling. What we've done is all the preliminary engineering work in terms of estimating. I think we have like 29,000 tons of soil that we're looking at. The checklist of what types of permits and mitigations we would have to do, and then a lot of this is contained in our draft environmental assessment, and we're anticipating a FONSI declaration, because who doesn't want to clean up a brownfield and make the site better?
Right, okay. So I think one of the confusions was, I think there's some statement or some communication of yours that referred to this land as industrial commercial, which I think the understanding, and I'm not clear on all of this, so I'm just want to raise the question, would be urban, whereas in fact this is conservation land. And so if you could just clarify that status.
This is state land use conservation. It is county general plan urban expansion. But for purposes of the real property division, they classify it by its actual use, which is more industrial. And so it's a little complicated. It's lined out in the EA. We are entirely surrounded by urban land.
Right.
But for some reason, when the state, because our general lease predates the state classification.
What is the date of, do you recall?
65. And the lease goes all the way to 2032 because it was a 65-year lease. So we have contacted with the appropriate agencies, and the EA clearly says that the land is state land use conservation, but even though it's conservation land, the appropriate division, then the land management division in turn contacts the rest of the divisions within DLNR.
Okay, and I think that seems to be part of the confusion, because my understanding, at least, what I'm reading from Dr. Kopp, is in his communication with OCCL, is they said, we don't know about this, and we don't know about this fire, and we don't know about the extension here into Liliaca, a number of ignorance, but you went through the proper department.
Yes.
And it's your understanding that they communicated with OCC, and you probably have it sitting there. So I'm not.
Yes,
you don't
I
have
do.
to
I have
bring
the
me
letter
evidence.
from them saying
I
that
want to
they've
just get it
communicated.
on the record and clear, because I think it's just. I appreciate when members of the community raise questions. I don't, and I applaud. We're talking $6 million here, and that we get the clarification and the public understands what we're doing here. So. So on the solid waste permit, this is on that's a separate.
That's Department of Health.
That's Department of Health. Did we get a permit for doing that on that land, or is our lease?
We have a general lease with DLNR. Then we have permits to run solid waste operations with the Department of Health. It is the Department of Health that is essentially directing us to clean up the site, but we are in communication with DLNR because ultimately it's state land. And obviously I think that we would all be, if you were the state, you would want us to clean up state land. And this is one of the reasons that we no longer do scrap metal operations on either the Hilo or the Kealakehe site and instead move to doing our scrap metal contracts with contractors, and they do it on their property, so that once we clean up Kealakehe, this isn't going to be something that recurs in the future. Down the road, we will be coming in to clean up the Gila scrap metal site. But Kealakehe was a higher priority. And one of the reasons there is the concern over the lead contamination is there had been a fire that broke out in the scrap metal pile. And as you know, lead melts in fire conditions. And that's one of the reasons we have contamination in the soil.
And is it the same when you say remediation in Hilo? Is that also for lead from scrap?
We've got pieces of metal. We're still in the process of fully testing the site. There may be some, but it's very little compared to the amounts that we've found at Kealakehe.
Okay.
But Hilo is a bigger site. It's more acres of land, so it will actually be more expensive to clean up Hilo.
Okay, so I know we're looking forward to our budget discussions with you, from wastewater to remediation. Okay, and just in terms of this lot, what is the size of the overall lease lot?
30
something.
30.5
And then approximately the area that we're talking here for remediation, excluding the Liliuokalani,
Roughly 10.
14 or something
10.
like approximately 10. I think the way that Dr. Kopp sort of came to looking at these and raising these questions is, and this a little tangential, but his understanding, he was looking at it, was really been focused on homelessness, what can we do? And this was a part of that 30-acre site. He was looking at, well, maybe this is an area we could do the micro housing and that kind of thing. And let me sort of clear while you're here, it's my understanding that you feel that regardless of how good that project is, right now you're looking at needing that entire site and for future uses, and you would not expect it to at some time be going into residential use.
I think that putting residential use next to an existing operation of our transfer station and all the things that we do there is probably a poor location.
Okay.
But beyond that, Dr. Kopp, I had again copied on a letter from him. My response was that basically nobody's doing anything with that land until it gets cleaned up. And there's nobody that would approve you putting any kind of homeless shelter on the land that's contaminated.
Right.
That you have to clean it up before you discuss doing anything else. I think he was perhaps unhappy with my response to him.
And I think he's just,
and that's one of the reasons I think the county is proceeding to do the micro units at the old industrial area.
Right.
Because
And
it's not as if the county is not moving ahead to address this issue.
Right.
The
And
county
we
has
all
found a
know
site.
that we have much more to do, but that doesn't take away from, if this isn't a good site, we find more sites. We need the solid waste and the environmental management issues. Do we have a choice in terms of how much remediation is done depending on future use? I mean, is there just...
The process of the draft EA will have various alternatives. The preferred alternative, obviously, this is because of the consultation with Department of Health, is to dig up the soil and move it. One of the alternatives was just to encapsulate it. We think that, everyone's going to say dig up the soil, clean up the site, so there's no issue. And that will also be the response from Queen Liliuokalani Trust, that they want us to clean up their land. It would then potentially be available for expanded services for the solid waste division at Kealakehe. We would like, in the long range, to we've got the base yard building where our employees change clothes and use a bathroom and have a shower is being held together by termites. So once all of this is done, I imagine that the Solid Waste Division and the next director of the department would probably come in with a proposal for use of the property. But for us, right now the goal is we need to clean up the land. The request to the state a year ago was to amend the lease from rubbish dump purposes to general government purposes. With the thought that, the police have come to us and looked at whether they could do an impound lot for cars when they seize it, because it's right across the police station. So we have the request into the state to expand the types of services so that I imagine, because of its central location, that there would be more than one other county agency that will look at the long-term use of that property. Obviously, our department would be advocating for solid waste purposes. I think the police would be advocating for some of their purposes for an impound lot because it's right within view. But all of that is contingent on the state amending the general lease to expand the types of uses.
Okay, and very quickly, the last couple things. When you get this EA done, will you be coming back here to sort of update us as a council, or would we need to come to you and ask what's happening? What's your next contact with us on this matter?
Well, typically on an EA, we don't have further contact with the council. We publish it through OEQC. They receive comments on it. We respond to the comments on the draft, and then all of that gets incorporated, and possibly you end up with amendments on a final draft, which is then submitted. And but that's all available on OEQC's website. It'll references to it will be available on the county's website, on our department's website.
Okay. And lastly, when we remove this contaminated soil, we're taking it to the landfill. Is that what, when we're cleaning up, where do we take
that? Everything has to go to Pu'uanuhulu whenever you do removal of contaminated soil. Just as we had what we called the Hilo Burrito Project when we found that the soccer fields here in Hilo, there had been an old gas operation, and so there was some contamination. All of that soil was dug up, and then it was taken to Pu'uanuhulu. The reason we go to Pu'uanuhulu is it is a lined landfill so that you can ensure that you don't have any percolation or any of the contaminants would going into the ground, because it's lined and we encapsulate it basically.
Earlier, no. Council members, any other discussion? Ms. Willie?
I'm good. If I have any further follow-up, I can meet with DJ.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Thank you, Ms. Eoff.
Yeah, I remember what I thought of before, and I hope it's not off subject too much, but people have been asking me if we're going to close down or closing down that scrap metal yard, where do they go? And are there private companies already in business?
There were a couple of things that occurred internationally that impacted scrap metal and vehicles. And that was that the market for scrap metal in a one-year period dropped from $160 a ton to $30 a ton. It has impacted operations throughout the country, and it's directly tied to the slowdown of the Chinese economy, who was the primary entity that people would sell scrap metal to. The changing market structure now is picking up a little bit. So my understanding is that the scrap metal processor, in particular Big Island Scrap Metal, is now accepting metal from the public. And
Big Island Scrap Metal.
Yeah.
And where is that?
They're in Hilo, actually Kealakekehe, and then they've got a facility in the industrial area in Kona too.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's Shipment Industrial over here.
Ms. Eoff, you good?
Yep.
Council members, any other discussion? Okay, I don't have any more. I think you've explained everything we need to know about this project. So again, mahalo for all your hard work. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 8 ayes, motion passes